My name is Matthew. I'm 30, and when my father died, I thought the hardest part of my life was just beginning. I didn't realize the true battle wasn't grief, it was betrayal. If you've ever trusted the wrong person because they wore the mask of family, you'll understand what I'm about to share. Stay with me, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit like, and tell me in the comments. Do you think step-parents can ever truly love the children they didn't raise? My father was everything to me. A builder by trade, a dreamer by nature, and the kind of man who believed that hard work meant something. He raised me alone after my mother passed, and every lesson he taught me was laced with one truth: earn your life, but protect it, too. When he remarried, I was 17. That's when Evelyn came into the picture. My stepmother. She was beautiful, polished, the kind of woman who knew how to charm a room. At first, I wanted to believe she cared, but the cracks showed quickly. The warmth she showed, my father evaporated when it was just the two of us. She treated me like an obstacle, a reminder that this wasn't her family, it was his. I became an inconvenience in my own home. Still, for my father's sake, I endured it. When he fell ill a decade later, I was the one by his side. Evelyn was there too, of course, but more for appearances than comfort. I'll never forget the night before he passed. He gripped my hand, his voice weak but steady. "Matthew," he whispered, "everything I've built is yours. Don't let anyone take it from you." I made sure of it. Tears burned my eyes, but I nodded. "I promised, Dad." The next morning, he was gone, and Evelyn's mask slipped completely. At the will reading, her smile was soft, almost pitying, as if she was consoling me. But when the lawyer began, my world cracked. According to the document in front of us, nearly everything, our home, his savings, his business, had been signed over to Evelyn. For me, nothing. She glanced at me, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "I'm sorry, Matthew. Your father must have changed his mind." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All I could hear was his voice from that night. "Everything I've built is yours." Something was wrong. Something was missing. And in the weeks that followed, as Evelyn tightened her grip on the estate, I realized she wasn't content with just stealing what was mine. She wanted to ruin me completely. The days after the will reading felt like waking up in a nightmare that refused to end. The house I grew up in, the one I thought I'd inherit, the one my father built brick by brick, was no longer home. It was Evelyn's stage, and I was no longer welcome on it. At first, she played it subtle. "You need to find somewhere else soon," she told me one morning, her tone syrupy sweet, the kind that would fool anyone who didn't know better. "It's just, you're a grown man now, Matthew. It's time you stood on your own." I bit back, the words burning on my tongue. This is my home. My father left it to me. But without proof, without a single document to back me up, it would only sound like bitterness. So I stayed quiet, even as she began boxing up my father's things, his jackets, his tools, even the photographs from the hallway. She didn't ask. She didn't explain. She simply erased him piece by piece. Then came the finances. I've been working at my father's construction company since I was old enough to swing a hammer. He always said one day I'd run it. But after his death, Evelyn swooped in with a pen and a smile, and suddenly suppliers stopped taking my calls. Clients canceled projects. Paychecks stopped arriving. I confronted the accountant, an old family friend. He looked at me with pity. "Evelyn's the owner now, Matthew. Legally, everything flows through her." I walked out of that office with rage buzzing in my ears. Evelyn wasn't just taking what was his, she was cutting me out completely. And then things started to get darker. The first time, I brushed it off as bad luck. I was working late on a renovation site when a scaffold collapsed. Nails and boards rained down, missing me by inches. But when I inspected it later, I saw the bolts had been loosened. Not worn, not rusted, but deliberately unscrewed. A week later, I nearly crashed when my truck's brakes failed at an intersection. The mechanic shook his head. This wasn't wear and tear. Someone tampered with the line. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel that night. The thought I'd been avoiding pressed in with icy certainty. Evelyn didn't just want my inheritance. She wanted me gone. permanently. She had the money. She had the house. She had the company. And now, she had me looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next accident. But she had one weakness: arrogance. She believed she had erased every trace of my father's true wishes. She believed she had buried his promise along with him. And that arrogance would be the very thing that brought her down. Nights are the hardest. Sleep never came easily anymore. Every creak in the house sounded like danger. Every shadow on the street a reminder that I was being watched. Evelyn had stripped me of my inheritance, cut me out of my father's company, and nearly cost me my life twice. But the memory of my father's voice wouldn't leave me. Everything I've built is yours, Matthew. Don't let anyone take it from you. I made sure of it. He wasn't the type of man to speak lightly. If he said he had made sure, then he had, which meant somewhere, hidden beyond Evelyn's reach, there had to be proof. So I started searching. I spent nights digging through my father's old office, the one Evelyn had been too busy redecorating to fully clear out. She'd replaced his leather chair with a glass one, his wooden desk with a sleek steel frame, but she hadn't touched the filing cabinets in the corner. Most of what I found was ordinary. Receipts, contracts, blueprints for half-finished projects. But then I noticed something strange. A folder marked personal had been wedged behind the others, almost invisible. Inside was a stack of letters, handwritten, all addressed to me. The first one stopped me cold. Matthew, if you're reading this, then I am gone. I know Evelyn. I know her ambition, and I fear she will stop at nothing to take what isn't hers. That's why I prepared a second will. The lawyer she trusts may have one version, but the true one, the one that honors you, is kept safe. Follow the clues, and you'll find it. My hand shook as I read those words. He had known. He had seen her for who she was long before I did. The next letters were less direct, almost like riddles. They mentioned the church where he had been baptized, the Bible he had carried since boyhood, the inscription carved in the old workshop bench he and I had built together. I pieced them together slowly, one by one, until a picture began to form. He had hidden the will somewhere meaningful, somewhere Evelyn would never think to look. The first place I checked was the church. I asked the pastor, an old friend of my father's, if he remembered Dad leaving anything there. The pastor shook his head until his eyes lit up suddenly. Wait, he asked me to keep something in the archives a few years back. Said it was for Matthew one day. My heart pounded as he led me into a dusty storage room. From a locked cabinet, he pulled out a weathered Bible wrapped in cloth. I opened it with trembling fingers, flipping through until I reached the center. There, tucked between the pages of Psalms, was an envelope sealed with my father's handwriting. I broke it open, and there it was, the true will, signed, notarized, and naming me, not Evelyn, as the heir to his estate, his company, and his home. For a moment, I just stared at it, my chest tight, my eyes burning. He hadn't lied. He hadn't abandoned me. He had protected me, even from beyond the grave. But the realization came quickly, sharp as a knife. Evelyn would never let this surface without a fight. And if she had already tried to kill me, she wouldn't hesitate to try again. The difference now was that I had something she didn't. Proof. And I wasn't going to hide it. I was going to expose her. I didn't sleep the night I found the will. I sat at my kitchen table with the Bible open, the pages spread before me, staring at the document my father had hidden. Every time my eyes skimmed over his signature, steady and deliberate, I felt both relief and fire in my chest. He had trusted me to find this. He had trusted me to fight. The next morning, I called my father's old lawyer, the one Evelyn had conveniently fired before the official was read. His voice cracked when he heard my name. Matthew, I'm glad you reached out. I was troubled by what I heard. That will Evelyn paraded around? It didn't sound like your father's wishes. When I told him what I had found, he went silent, then said firmly, bring it in. If it's valid, we'll set this right. We scheduled a family meeting with relatives and the company board present. Evelyn insisted on holding it at her home, my father's home, But this time I walked in with my head high, the Bible tucked under my arm. The living room was crowded when I arrived. My uncles and cousins sat stiffly, murmuring among themselves. The company accountant avoided my eyes. Evelyn swept in late, dressed in black silk, her smile brittle but confident. "Well," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table, "I suppose Matthew wants another go at questioning his father's wishes." I let her smirk linger for a moment before I opened the Bible and laid the envelope on the table. Not questioning, proving. Her eyes flicked to the envelope, then back to me. "And what's that supposed to be?" "The truth," I said simply. I unfolded the will, sliding it across to the lawyer. He adjusted his glasses, read carefully, then looked up with a grave expression. This is valid. Signed, notarized, and dated after the version Evelyn submitted. This is the most recent and therefore the controlling will." Gasps rippled around the room. My uncle leaned forward. "You mean?" "It means," the lawyer said firmly, "that Matthew is the rightful heir. The estate, the company, the assets all belong to him, not Evelyn." The room erupted. Relatives murmured, some glaring at Evelyn, others looking at me with newfound respect. Evelyn's face twisted. "This is ridiculous. He's faking this. He must have forged it." The lawyer shook his head. "The notary is a colleague I know personally. This document is authentic." I leaned forward, meeting her furious gaze. "You thought you erased every trace of him, but you didn't. He knew you. He saw you for what you are, and he made sure I'd be ready when the time came." She slammed her hand on the table, her voice cracking. "This isn't over, Matthew. You think a piece of paper makes you stronger than me? You'll regret this. You'll regret ever standing against me." But her words rang hollow. The room was no longer hers. The accountant nodded slowly toward me. The board members whispered my name with approval, and my relatives turned their backs on her. For the first time since my father's death, Evelyn was powerless. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't. Evelyn didn't take her defeat quietly. I hadn't expected her to. After the meeting, word spread quickly through the family, through the company, even through the small town my father had worked in for decades. People knew the truth now. I was the rightful heir, the one my father had chosen. And Evelyn, she was the woman who tried to cheat his own son out of everything. But humiliation wasn't enough for her. A week later, I came home to find my workshop ransacked. Tools scattered, blueprints shredded, a window smashed. Nothing of value was missing, but the message was clear. She wanted me rattled. Then came the threats. Anonymous letters slipped onto my door. "Accidents happen. Careful who you trust." The same kind of shadowy warnings that had followed the brake failure and the scaffold collapse. The old fear returned, gnawing at me. But this time, I wasn't alone. The lawyer had advised me to involve the police, and with the fraud alert already filed, the investigation was underway. What Evelyn didn't know was that every move she made now only tightened the noose around her own neck. The breaking point came at a company board meeting. I had been reinstated as majority owner, thanks to the true will, but Evelyn insisted on attending, still clinging to scraps of influence. She arrived late, her hair disheveled, her eyes sharp with fury. "You can't run this company," she spat across the table. "You're too young, too naive. You'll destroy everything your father built." I met her glare with calm. I didn't fully feel. Better me than someone who tried to steal it. The accountant cleared his throat. "Mrs. Turner, perhaps it's best you step back. The evidence is clear." Her voice rose, cracking under the strain. "Evidence? Evidence can be forged. Don't you see what he's doing? He's turning you all against me." Silence followed. Board members shifted uncomfortably, their eyes sliding away from her. And then, as if fate had scripted it, the detective investigating my case walked in. He placed a folder on the table. "Mrs. Turner, we've traced the forgery of the first will back to you. The notary confirmed the signatures were altered. And we've connected tampering on Matthew's truck to a mechanic you paid in cash." The room went still. Evelyn's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing without words. I sat back, letting the weight of it sink in. You didn't just try to take what was mine. You tried to take me out of the picture entirely. But Dad knew you too well. He made sure the truth would survive you. The detective stepped forward. Evelyn Turner, you'll need to come with me. Her chair scraped loudly as she stood, shaking her head in disbelief. No, this isn't how it ends. But it was. They led her out of the room in handcuffs, her shouts echoing down the hallway. The board members exchanged stunned looks, then slowly turned toward me. For the first time, their eyes carried respect. Later that night, I stood in the driveway of my father's house, the house Evelyn had tried so hard to take. The porch light glowed softly, and for the first time since his passing, the place felt like it belonged again. I could almost hear his voice in the wind. Everything I've built is yours, Matthew. Don't let anyone take it from you. I whispered into the night. I didn't, Dad. I didn't let her win. Evelyn had tried to rewrite the story of my life. She had forged papers, sabotaged my future, even tried to end me. But the truth had spoken louder. And in the end, she lost everything. If you've ever fought against someone who thought they could erase you, you know the satisfaction of standing on solid ground again. Untouchable, unshakable. Subscribe to this channel, hit like, and tell me in the comments, at what moment do you think Evelyn realized she'd already lost?